Hi, this is Kelly Bollness, and this is my Module 4 Analysis in Course Corrections. I'm also losing my voice a little bit, so I apologize if it's shoddy during this video. So I am making a geography short course. It's titled How to Read a Map. The audience for this course is the middle elementary grade, so that's grades 3 through 5 in Massachusetts. So this is based on the Massachusetts 2018 History and Social Science curriculum. This course is going to help conceptualize directional geography, map skills, and students' overall place in the world. So there are some connections between this course and what students are going to be learning in the previous grade, as well as what they're going to be learning in the coming grades. So in the second grade, the curriculum covers global geography and places, peoples, cultures, and resources. The third grade, they learn all about Massachusetts. The fourth grade, they learn about North American geography and people, including indigenous peoples. And the fifth grade goes into the United States history and Civil War and Civil Rights movement. So obviously, history and geography go hand in hand. If you don't know that you live in Massachusetts and you don't know where Massachusetts is compared to California, or just where Massachusetts is on a map, things like the American Revolution and civil rights are going to be a little confusing for you. So this course has two learning goals. The first one is that students will be able to survey a map, so they'll be able to look at it and make sense of it, which way's north, look at a compass rose, read a map key, things like that. The second learning goal is that students will be able to differentiate between the layers of maps, so they can tell the difference between a world map and a country map, and a map of Massachusetts compared to a map of their street. So the first objective for this course is that students will assess which map features are appropriate given a situation. So knowing that if you're making a map of, Boston, you're probably not going to put a forest in it. If you're making a map of Egypt, again, probably not going to put a forest. The second objective is that students will be able to identify their place on a map and compare among the different layers. So students will know that they live in Massachusetts and that Massachusetts is in New England, which is in the Northeast region, the East Coast, which is in the country of the United States, which is on the continent of North America, and the fact that North America is a continent of the world. The third objective is that students will justify locations of places on a map using longitude and latitude. So longitude and latitude are actually mathematical equations, based on the equator and the prime meridian. So students will be able to justify where things are, saying, I know the coordinates of this, and I know that it must be over here because that's where, coordinate 3932 is. So here's a basic rundown of my course. So the theory that it's based off of is Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, and the methodology is Keller's ARCs. So Keller is really big on keeping the learners engaged rather than focusing more on the content that they're learning. And Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence wants you to keep in mind that there are all different kinds of strengths and all different kinds of learners. So here's a scenario that I'm going to base the next part of my presentation on. So I'm reviewing and grading analytics at the halfway point of my geography short course. I notice that two students have poor participation and work output. Because of this, they are behind their peers and their grades are lower than average. So when I look at this, I see that there are two problems. The first one is that they have poor participation and poor work output, and the second is that their grades are lower than average. These go hand in hand. Their grades are going to be lower if they're not participating, and their grades are going to be affected if they're not producing any work. So looking at Chickering and Gampson's principles, I decided that there are 5 of these that I can use to help these struggling kids. So the first one, how to help encourage contact between students and faculty. So here are some things that I decided based on this principle that I can do to help these students. So just making myself available and known to the students. doing daily check-ins with them, making sure they get an exit ticket done so I know that they're absorbing the content and they're actually learning, and to provide opportunities for students to ask and discuss questions with the teacher. So this can be in person, this can be virtual, this can also even be anonymous. Some kids might feel uncomfortable or embarrassed to ask questions, so giving them an outlet to be able to do this without feeling embarrassed is really important, especially if they are struggling. And also just to express my concern to them, let them know that they're falling behind and ask maybe why that's happening, because there could be more to the situation you see. There may be something going on at home or a conflict at school that's affecting their work engagement. So the second one is to encourage active learning. So to get those struggling students engaged in the course, you want to make that content and activities more real world to them, or relating it more to their preferred activities. If they like sports, you can talk about the geography and the landscapes around different sports arenas or things like that. And also pairing the struggling students with preferred peers. So if they have a best friend in the class and their best friend is a usually well-engaged student, it might be helpful to pair them together and have that student act like a role model. The third one is to emphasize time on task. So I can set stricter deadlines, letting them know that this has to be done in order to do the next step, and the next step may be something fun they want to do, so they'll be more inclined to doing that possibly more boring previous step. And also, just again, offering those help and check-ins to make sure the students are on track. Also, scaffolding activities. Maybe activities are seemingly too large for them, they're getting overwhelmed with them quickly. Just scaffolding them out, breaking up into pieces might help those students stay a little more engaged and less retractive. So the next one is to communicate high expectations. Just to use rubrics, and that can let a kid know exactly what's expected of them. To use high-performing peers to act as mentors to struggling students. So every class is going to have those kids that whiz right through the work and are always looking for something else to do. So this can be a good collaboration and social skills for both students involved. Also, to know your students. You're not going to expect more than what the student is developmentally capable of. You're not going to expect your struggling reader to write you a 5-paragraph essay, so just keeping that in mind as well. And the last one is to respect diverse talents and ways of learning. So keeping in mind those UDL principles and Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, knowing that some kids do better at visual things and some kids are better at writing. And because of that, you want to provide students with many ways to show their competency. And again, pairing students of lower academic levels with peers of higher levels, building those social skills, as well as, if that kid doesn't have to do it all alone, he'll feel more inclined to get it done. So here's some changes that I've made to my course based on those 2 struggling students in my scenario. So this one, the original collaboration plan was to have a peer or the computer describe a map while you draw it. And this one I changed it to sit back to back with the peer to describe a map while you draw it. And I did this because, again, pairing the students together to complete activities helps students stay accountable and engaged. If you're doing something with a peer, you have to hold up your end of the deal, or else, you lose a friend. And kids at this age are, quite honestly, more worried about losing friends and learning geography. So having a friend keep them accountable is going to be helpful. So the other assessment here, it was create a song or video presentation. I changed this to create a song, video, speech, essay, or poster board. So this is based on Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences and comfort levels of students. So some might be more comfortable making a song, and some might just want to write you an essay, and some are more visual and would rather make a poster board. So for lesson 2, the original activity was the Me on the Map, and it was a read aloud an activity book. And this one is the same thing, but you're doing it with a peer and comparing your results. So at one point of Me on the Map, you have to talk about your street and your home, and people live in different homes, so it would be fun to compare with a peer about those differences. And also, reading it with a peer is going to help those struggling readers to actually read it. That higher level reader can read it to them and they can work on their social skills as well. So that collaboration piece is also changed. So connecting with a student across the world, this I just added to add a graphic organizer in. So great, connect with the kid, what are you going to talk about? So giving them a graphic organizer to organize their ideas out on paper about what they would say to their kid when they get to talk to them. So for lesson 3, the original was longitude and latitude gamer activity. This just got changed to longitude and latitude gamer activity online or paper to be completed by a certain date. So this is to pull in that, well, later you get to work with a friend, so you have to do this before you get to do the fun stuff. So that's going to keep them accountable, and they're going to want to get through that so they can work with their friend. And that next one we were just talking about, so instead of just a random person in your class, putting them with a preferred peer. And the assessment for that is to find the longitude and latitude of a place that's special to you rather than to find it of your home. The word home and family can be triggering to some students, and if you're having a struggling student that's struggling due to outside circumstances, we don't want to give them anything more to worry about. So some ethical issues when doing any sort of data collection analysis, some ethical issues arrive. Of course, for this course I can think of 2. So the first one would be privacy. So when you're doing any sort of data collection, you're going to have students' information on your computer, on your database, and that just is a privacy issue if anything were to happen. As well as this is a blended course, so being on the internet, this could be your students' first introduction into the digital world, and it's going to start to build their digital profile, and digital profiles are very hard to change or get rid of if you abuse them. And the second one would be the validity. So computers are used in this course and information could be looked up rather than generated by students' direct knowledge. So, any sort of thing that they questions they're answering can just be a quick Google search. So just keeping that in mind as well. And copyright issues are nothing to ignore, just like ethical issues. And being online, there's numerous sources in which content is pulled from. It's necessary to check and then double check that all the content in your course is following copyright laws, as well as checking all of the students' work that they're handling, make sure that they are not violating any copyright laws. And again, we live in a digital world and computers are inevitable, so we need to really educate those students about the laws themselves and at an early age get them used to not stealing content. And here are just some references for my presentation. Thanks.